Someone that says like, oh, in the next 5 years it's gonna go away. Yeah. Like, no, it's not.
It's gonna go up, it's gonna go down, it's gonna go sideways. It's always gonna be a fluctuation because you're gonna have people that see reselling and they're gonna see reselling and they're gonna be like, oh, that's easy, I can do that.
9 to 5 is going away.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
You gotta be careful and not jump and put all your eggs in that one basket if you're not sure of that platform.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the cabin. Today's gonna be a bit of a different type of episode, something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I got a comment the other day from a hater on a video, and we were talking about a few different things about reselling, and this person said, don't get used to this because 3 years from now, you're gonna go back to having a regular job. So they were watching one of my videos where we were talking about, probably 2 years ago, not teaching anymore. And I had a couple comments along those lines back then, but I haven't seen one in a long time. And so I wanna talk about that today, and I've got some special guests here in the cabin to talk about it. I'm gonna turn the camera back on me for just a second because I've said this many times at this point. I don't think I'm ever gonna do a regular 9 to 5 again. I've been spoiled. I absolutely love being my own boss. Now, if it became necessary, I would figure out a way to support my family. But I would take every single avenue I could possibly do to not go back and work for somebody else at a 9 to 5 job. So that being said, I wanna pose that person's comment to each one of these guys. All right, y'all, I brought in the guys from the Reseller Information Network to react to this question, and I'm posing a slightly different question to them. So we're gonna react to that, and then we're gonna actually kind of look at it as a reality and say, all right, where is reselling going? Is this something that actually all of us, none of us have real jobs, can keep doing? For he laughs, he's like, yeah, I worked my butt off, right? It's a real job. But really, we don't have real jobs, right? We don't have a boss other than ourselves, unless you're married, Hey, is this something that we can sustain? 5 years from now, we're going to look back and say, you know what, that guy was right. That jerk was right. Are you working a 9 to 5? And I want to kind of look at that and kind of address it and to see where you guys think reselling is going, kind of on a macro level, and then we'll get into a little bit of micro. All right, so all of us here, like I said, don't have real jobs, but I want to kind of address, because everybody's in a slightly different situation, and whether or not you have a real job or not a real job, or your spouse makes money or your spouse doesn't make money, all of us are in slightly different situations, and I want to kind of address that first before we look at the future of reselling specifically. So I'm going to start with you. This is Chernok's Connection. You guys got a YouTube channel, but he never does anything on it. And he's on Instagram. He's, of course, all of these guys over on the Reseller Information Network. So how long has this been your quote-unquote full-time job?
For about, I think it's been like 4.5, 5 years.
Okay, 4.5, 5 years.
Yeah.
And is it your only form of income, or do you have a few other streams here?
I have a few other streams.
Okay. But it is your main.
Yes, probably 80%.
80%. Okay,
yeah,
that's
80 to
good.
90%.
I like that. Okay, and so without getting into detail, I want a yes or no answer. Do you see yourself doing this pretty much the way you're doing it right now, maybe with minor changes or platform type changes, but reselling full-time 5 years from now? Just yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, we're going to go with Tim now. You have a spouse that makes a little bit of money, but this for you is your full-time income. Would you give us a percentage maybe of your income? Not your family's, but yours that comes from reselling.
Well, first of all, Josie will kill me. Josie doesn't make a little bit of money. Josie makes good money. But no, yes, my income is 100% through reselling.
Okay. She better make good. He lives in D.C., y'all. You better make some money up there.
Yes.
It's not like living here in the sticks, So, at any rate, 100% from reselling.
All my money comes from reselling.
Leroy, this is Leroy. Oh, by the way, I didn't even introduce. This is Tim. Over the years, collecting, eBay, and do I miss one?
Over the years sports.
Over the years sports on Instagram. Okay, Leroy, what about you? I don't know if your wife works outside the home or if she doesn't, but as far as your income, how much of it is reselling? If you're willing to tell me.
99%.
99%. So we're talking to people. For the most part, I left you for last because you had a little different situation. your guys' income, the great majority, vast majority, are all from reselling. So if that person's going to give you guys this comment, you're going to react. I didn't ask you. Do you think you'll be doing this almost the way you are with a great majority of your income coming from reselling 5 years from now?
I don't think, but I do
yes
know.
Or no? It's yes or no?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
See, you give him a prompt, he'll talk forever. So we'll get going in a second. All right, you're in a little different situation. You don't have to give me numbers if you don't want, but I don't think the percentage of your income is probably not quite as high as there, but it's pretty decent.
Yeah, probably like 75, 80%.
75, 80% from reselling. So these are folks that would have a reaction to that. So are you going to say, and you might have a slightly different answer, 5 years from now, do you think it will roughly your income be coming how much from reselling, more or less, or similar?
It's going to be similar. I think it'll still be similar.
Okay, very good. All right, now we're going to get into some macro because he's chomping at the bit over here. All right, Tim, so some guy walks up to you and he says, dude, reselling's a joke, man. What are you talking about? 3 years from now, you're going to be working for the man and you're going to be working 9 to 5, 40 hours a week for somebody else. What would your reaction be to somebody who told you that?
My initial reaction would probably be I would laugh, and then I would ask why. For me, I think some people don't, unless you're in it, you don't really understand it, and that's the drawback. But for me, I'm very similar to you. Like, I've worked so many different jobs, and I will never see myself working for somebody else because of the luxury that I'm provided, family, freedom, and the ability to
It's like you can
create.
come down to the $100 yard
exactly.
sale, right?
In the middle of the week.
I mean, yeah, middle of the week. These guys just say, yeah, let's go check it out.
So for me, it's a thing that's I have dedicated myself to doing. And I think that as long as you're dedicated to your craft, because I look at reselling as a craft more so than a job. And I think that as long as you dedicate yourself to your craft, it's not necessarily working if you love what you do. And as long as the bills continue to get paid between myself and my wife, that's all that really matters. I think a lot of people who probably drop that sort of comment on a video like that or in person, because you get that a lot from people that don't know you or don't know what you necessarily do. I think a lot of it is, to be, perfectly honest with you, is some sort of envy because they do not have the same luxury and freedom.
I think that's a very correct statement.
Especially in today's world where it's difficult to work for somebody else. And when you work for somebody else for so long and you see how much money they're making and you're like, I'm putting in all this work. I can put them on the same amount of time and make more money for myself. And
all right, I'm going to come back to you with a slightly different tweak on that, which is, how would you prove him wrong, like from an economic standpoint, like, this is why I'm going to still be doing this. Not a philosophical one necessarily, like I'm determined to do this, but for somebody who thinks that reselling isn't going to be sustainable over time. So I'm going to go to Leroy next year because you've talked to me before. You've worked those 9 to 5s, those labor jobs, construction. I think you did for a while. Yeah. You've done all those, right? And so there's ups and downs to reselling. What would your reaction be to somebody who would tell you that? And Leroy's a nice guy. He's probably the nicest of all these guys in here. So he would have a very sympathetic reaction. But what would your reaction be?
I would tell the guy, like, listen, first and foremost, I've done the other jobs, and I just want to do something that I enjoy to do. Yeah. I enjoy doing it. I like to, everything that I sell tools. So everything that I sell is mainly used stuff. So I want to get it back out there so it doesn't go and get put in the landfill. Right. So I like to clean it up. I like to sell it and it's workable tools. Right. Most of my stuff is workable tools. So I would pretty much tell them it's crazy.
See, to me, and this is what I'm going to go back to you in a second here. I'm going to talk to these guys first. But to me, if I'm you, I make a totally different argument for it than you. My argument might be something like, dude, have you seen the economy? Have you seen the supply chain? Yeah. You are a needed cog in this supply chain, right? You can't get something to fix whatever, and if you can, it's like $900, right? Yes. And so you could say, look, if things continue down this trend, this is a growing market as opposed to a shrinking one. So, all right, we're going to go over here, and then we're going to go to Chernock. So if somebody tells you, hey, this isn't sustainable, Eric, and you are. By the way, I didn't introduce Eric. This is OBX Picker.
Right?
I never said his name. This is Eric. I just take it for granted. We've been doing this so long. So that's right. I remember Eric, by the way. Must have been 2 years ago, and I can't remember if you sent me a sticker. You bought something on there, and I was like, "Who's this guy?" And I looked him up. I'm like, "Oh my goodness, this guy's like a Viking over here." And he started a live channel. And I remember coming in your live. You might have even asked me to come in the live, and I went to check him out over there. So he's been doing this a while, and he's still doing it. So will you be doing it in 3 years? All right, so Eric, so somebody comes and says, you know what, I just don't see how this is going to last. You know, do you really think you're going to be doing this 3 years from now? Or if nothing else, do you really think this is a market that's growing? What would you respond to somebody like that?
You know, you talked about earlier about the 9-to-5 situation. Well, 9 to 5 is going away.
Yeah, that's actually a good point.
It's not the way it's always been. People are working from home. People are working remotely. In fact, it's actually gearing more towards this type of work. And like you touched on there, like people are recycling things. People are finding things that are out there that they have need of. If you go to any building supply, if you go to and you need a part, a product, auto parts, that kind of stuff, it ain't out there. Auto parts, people, I have boat parts in my store. People that are buying my boat parts are the boat repair people because they can't get the part. They can't find it. They don't know where it's at. So I think if anything, reselling, what we're doing is finding things that people need or want, desire. And that ain't going away. Yeah. People are always going to want and desire and need things.
That's a good
So
argument. For
us to find things, it's definitely sustainable. In fact, I think it's going to grow more and more.
And, you know, in your first point, I totally agree with all that. But your first point was something I never thought of, which is it's not unique to just reselling right here. We're not the only ones who quit that job and are doing some kind of freelance, some kind of something.
Gigs.
And gig economy, right? And so I think that's a really good point, and I think it's a good argument as well. So you're not going to come over here. By the way, I've never asked these people how much they make. I've never asked them how much they make on you know, I just asked what percentage, but I don't know how much money you make. But I do think, and I don't know, this isn't going to be a, you know, competition here. But these guys are good resellers. And, you know, when I go out picking with these guys, I'm constantly impressed. And I see them on Reseller Information Network, and I see their sales. And sometimes they'll share a sale with me, which we're going to talk about. We're going to do a separate video, so I'm not going to get into it. But these guys are great resellers. And like I said, you know, you're making a real income. I don't want to ask for numbers or anything like that, but you're making a really solid income. And kind of to piggyback on, I want to get your reaction, but for the rest of you, the next question is going to be about, is this not just sustainable, but is this an increasing market where you can, because, you know, people can't really live on the same exact income every single year. You know, you need a little bump every year, keep up with inflation. You know, is this something that's going to grow? But first, give me your reaction to my friend who left me that wonderful comment.
I've had that reaction in real life before.
Oh, really?
Before.
Not from a family member, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
okay.
yeah. And I slid out my phone and I said, "Can you take a look at this 90-day total?"
Ah, very good.
Okay.
You want to show it to us?
No, that's all
No,
right.
you don't want to show it to us the 90 days. Actually, it would be tough for him because you sell on so many platforms that you can't really give that 90-day total.
And I always say,
right?
like, the 90-day... Well, for that, when they see the 90-day total, they're like, whoa. Because I think a lot of people don't equate kind of what we do with the kind of the money that it brings in.
Right.
And also...
It's like it can't be possible, right?
Well, yeah, it's like, oh, well, you're selling hats. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, hey, listen, you sell enough, you know, $15, $20 hats. That adds up.
Yeah.
You know? And the thing, too, it's you know, there's a lot of things going on with each, you know, different reseller. You know, you don't know how much time they're spending. I think a lot of people may be jealous, but just don't know what all goes into
so much,
what reselling. Because resellers, that, you know, reselling a reseller has kind of gotten a dirty connotation in the last few years.
I'll tell you what, I work on this channel to fight against it. We often talk about it, and we're kind of doing it now. Wallen's out there. He wants to tell that guy something too.
So when my son, he goes, what should I tell people what you do, Dad?
I love this.
Should I tell them that you sell on eBay? I said, you know what? Tell them I work in fashion. because that's what I do. I mostly work in fashion.
He works in fashion. He wears IKEA bags every once in a while.
I sell shirts, hats, clothing. I'm a curator. I'm a fashion curator.
I really like that idea.
And then
I like that.
I tell other people that, and then they smirk. I'm like, oh yeah. Okay,
I like this response. So every response is different. Your response kind of is, here, take a look at my phone, right? But that doesn't completely answer the question, right? It answers the now question, but it doesn't answer the down the road, and that's what I want to talk about. All right, so last part of this question is, where do we see reselling going? There's a lot of folks out there who are watching the show right now that you are resellers. I get comments all the time like, eBay's terrible. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Well, eBay's not the only reselling platform, but it is the biggest, of course. So where are we going? Am I going to be able to sell things in a shed in my backyard for the next 5 years? And if so, what's that going to look like? And I want to talk about that. All right, I'm going to start with Eric this time, OBX Picker. So where do you think we're headed? So maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2 years, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5 years. Just kind of give me a big picture of where you think reselling is headed for individuals. Not necessarily where's eBay going. Where is eBay going as it relates to us, kind of a question. All right, what do you think?
I think for when you look at where things are headed, I think it's constantly, we say it all the time. Tim actually, he preaches this on RAN all the time.
Get 7-Eleven
You have to adapt.
Oh, no, you have to adapt.
You have to adapt. You have to adapt. You have to shift.
That's true.
Because what happens is, and where you talked about before about people possibly getting out. And most of the time that people they're gonna hit the wall when they refuse to bend. Yeah. When they refuse to shift. Like we know because we've seen new marketplaces coming into effect, like Whatnot, like Depop, like Grailed, like all these other platforms that you can sell on that are changing the way reselling is done. Yeah. I mean, we recently had a Tennessee Picker on our show, and he was talking about mailing in money orders and getting and packing and waiting on checks to come in.
That was me, man. That was me. Yeah, so I would get cash in the mail. People would send me cash in an envelope.
He talked about listing with a Polaroid at the library.
Yeah, no,
and I was like,
I'm not that old.
I was like, man, he's sending pictures in, scanning it. He said it takes 15 hours. Yeah. Now we can list on our phone virtually anywhere. Yep. You can have people. So I think if you refuse to adapt, you're gonna get left behind.
You know what? And I totally agree with that. And I think some people will be left behind. To be quite frank, I think that's what'll happen. And that's kind of me. That's the animal that I am. I don't like to change. I don't want to change. I have to force myself into it because I know the reality is exactly what you said. Yeah. And so I've made some of those changes, whether it's cross listing or whether it's Whatnot or whatever it is. And I'm willing to. Now I don't change fast. But I'm willing to do what it takes to change. I constantly talk about this on my show. To me, one of the impediments, I don't want to take somebody's answer away, for reselling as an individual that are going to keep people, new people from coming in and get the marginal resellers out is the taxation and the 1099 form. And they don't want to do what it takes accounting-wise to limit their liability. And then it becomes not worth reselling if you're only selling $10,000 a year or something and you're not doing what you should be, then it's costing you money. And so there's different things like that. There's hurdles like, the fees are going up on this platform or the fees are going up, and it weeds out more and more, which I think is unfortunate because it's such a benefit for so many people. But it gives resellers like us a leg up because we are doing the right things, assuming, we're doing the right things. All right, I'm going to go over here to Chernock here. So where do you see reselling in 5 years?
So I was thinking before we talk about the future, we always think about the past. Bartering, trading, selling has been around for thousands and thousands of years. Yeah. Someone that says in the next 5 years it's going to go away. Yeah. No, it's not. People will always be getting rid of stuff. People will always be, selling. And I think the future is going to be kind of what we've seen in the music industry, in, just online. What we've seen in a short 5-year span with online reselling. Like Eric mentioned, all these other sites popping up, introduction to Whatnot, live selling, eBay tweaking stuff, wanting to do different things. And also just the access and the ease of everything, you know, AI is an infant right now. In 5 years, we might be just going,
yeah,
AI, take a look at that photo I just sent you. Yeah, okay, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Can you make me a listing? Price it at $89.99.
All right. I'm going to give you a twist to
done.
this. I'm going to give you a twist as a negative. My twist as a negative to that would be, you know, the people that we buy from at those garage sales, now it becomes easier for them to do, and then there's a possibility maybe that they do it. Now, I don't think that applies to everybody, but it might apply to a certain amount more than now if it's the ease of listing. So, in other words, you know, the barrier to entry into reselling is, what do you think the biggest complaint you hear from new resellers? What's the hardest thing for them? Shipping, right? Yeah. So the barrier is shipping right now. If that barrier was wiped out and that fear was wiped out, would we have more resellers? Would people resell their own things? They'd find another.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at, everybody shakes their head yes on that one. I like that. That's good, right? Because it's always easier just to throw it at the thrift store and say take it, or to throw it in the yard and say $2.
The 1099.
That's good. I like that. That's a very good
just
point.
Just the taxes so 1099. I find people, and you know, people are like, well, I'm not going to sell online because they're going to hit me with the 1099. Yeah. Okay, all right, and that's where you're going to see those people shift to more Facebook Marketplace, door-to-door cash, selling at flea markets, doing stuff like that. As long as
there's cash.
So, you know, they're going to be resellers, but they're not going to be doing it online, you know, so to say. Okay. And I think with, you know, as the ease of listing gets, you know, going, you know, we're seeing it already with a lot of these thrift shops. Prices are going up because they know what they have. But here's the thing, adapting. Yeah. You got to be a better reseller. You got to find, you know what? There's some places I don't go anymore. Yeah, because it's not worth my time to go.
You can say Goodwill; they don't sponsor me.
Yeah, well, okay. there's a few places that I just don't go anymore because I'm like I'm gonna waste my time walking in here, or if I stay another 30 minutes an hour at my place that I get my good stuff at. Well, why am I gonna leave? Why am I gonna go to travel? Why am I gonna waste gas? So it's just about adapting, and I think that's what you're gonna have to do a lot more as it changes.
So we're kind of talking today about where we see it going, and you just gave me an idea for another type of video. What are the threats to it? Not that, because we all believe it's going to be here. We all believe it's going to continue to thrive. It'll have its ups and downs, but it'll thrive. But I do also someday want to talk about the threats to it. All right, Leroy, tell me what you think. So 3 years from now, where do you see? You see all these guys. Like I said, you stay in your lane and you only sell on eBay. Yep. Right, so you're selling one category, maybe 95% of what you sell is in the tools-ish category. Hardware, yep. Okay, and you're selling on one platform. Okay, where do you see reselling going? Not just for you, but for everybody in the next few years. What do you think?
I always feel like there's gonna. I've been doing this eBay for like 20 years, so I look back and as you guys are saying this, I'm saying to myself, oh well, I've been doing it different since 20 years ago. So in another 3 years, I'm going to do it a little bit different. Right. Even then. I remember trying to load the pictures, and it took me forever to load pictures, and now all my pictures are loaded in like 40 seconds if I have good internet. So I feel like...
Or 4 seconds if you have really good internet. And 4 minutes if you have Commonwealth internet.
I feel like, there's going to be new platforms always coming out there. I also feel you got to be careful and not jump and put all your eggs in that one basket if you're not sure of that platform. If that new platform comes out, sometimes you'll see people jump into that new platform and push their other platform aside where that's where they were making all their money, and they're not making all their money in there anymore. So I do feel like there's always going to be new platforms coming in, and eBay might push aside and I might have to push into another one. But as of right now, that's where I stay. Okay. I stay in that lane.
Well, I don't want to go into great detail on platform, but I just think I want to talk about this. So this is generally speaking, for all the people out there, most people who are resellers, start on eBay, but there is, Mercari folks and Poshmark and Depop, and there's people that specialize in all those platforms. I just want to look at eBay itself. All right, Tim, 5 years from now, let's just go 3 years from now. What are the trends? Where are we headed? Reselling going up, reselling going down. Is it changing platforms? Which we've seen before, right? I mean, we've seen these It's like eBay's been there from the beginning, but we do see these ups and downs. I remember, I'm interrupting your time here, but I remember the phase not too long ago, year and a half maybe, like, oh, if you're not on Facebook selling, you're whatever, right? Okay, and does anybody say, do you sell on Facebook? Like ship on Facebook?
No.
Does anybody?
No.
Did you ever?
Yes.
I tried.
3 times.
Okay. Right? But do you remember the talk about it? Like, oh, this is like where I bought into it. I started listening on Facebook. I'm like, I ain't doing this no more.
No.
Right? Okay. Where do you see reselling going? Major trends, up, down, sideways?
It's going to go up, it's going to go down, it's going to go sideways. It's always going to be a fluctuation because you're going to have people that see reselling and they're going to see reselling and they're going to be like, oh, that's easy. I can do that. So you're going to have an influx of people coming in trying to do reselling. And then as the actual day-to-day grind of reselling happens, you're going to see those same amount of people, maybe not the same people that just came in, but the same amount of people leaving. So there's always going to be an influx as far as incoming and outgoing resellers go. As far as the markets go, it's always going to be changing. You know, if you think that reselling is just going to be eBay and video games, then or dresses and Poshmark, then it's not going to go anywhere for you. Yeah. But as a whole, as a community, reselling's always going to be changing. Right. So you have to, and we talked about it, everybody talked about it, the adjust and adapt. Yeah. And if you're on all these multiple platforms, reselling is not just going to a yard sale, buying something, putting it on eBay, and selling it. The reselling is so much more than that. You have the live selling, you have the Instagrams, you have YouTube sales, you have there's so many different ways to resell that there's no way that it ever just goes away. Yeah. It's going to change. And to some people, it may go away because they don't accept those changes. But for others, it's a whole new world. It opens up new doors.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I'm going to let you keep talking. But I'm looking at you guys, and I've been picking with y'all. And you all have specialties, right? But I think you're the only one who really stays with your specialty. But to me, you have the safest specialty of anybody, right? This is never, ever going anywhere. Where you've seen ups and downs in the card market, right? Yep. And that's not the only thing he does, right? You do a lot of things. And you have a few specialties, but you're not out there buying DVD, VCR combos. I know that because he dropped them all off here because you don't deal with them. But, you're a jack of all trades. You stay in your lane more than you used to, but you're a jack of all trades. And there's some things you don't touch, but you do touch quite a few things, right? So I think it's interesting that somebody like you, because to me, I grew up in the junk era of card collecting, right? And I remember paying big bucks for what now is worth absolutely nothing, right? And so to me, that's like, if you were only selling in that category, then that person who said, you're not going to be doing this there's a way higher percentage that's right about you. It's not, because you sell, this guy picks everything that's amazing. But I think that's a key to it too. You just talked about all the aspects of reselling on the selling side, but there's so many aspects that can protect you as a reseller on the sourcing side as well. And I think you guys do that well. So I'm going to let you talk one more time here and give me anything else you want to tell me about where you think this thing is headed, if you got anything else.
I mean, to be honest with you, I think the best part about this is you don't really know where it's heading. You really have no idea, and I think that's what keeps us on our toes, especially all of us, because if something comes up that's brand new, we share it with each other, we share it with everybody else, like when we're on Reseller Information Network, and we try to plant those seeds into people's heads that there's so much more out there. You just have to kind of dip your toes in it and try it. If it doesn't work, you move on to the next thing, but you still have your foundation that you've built as a reseller.
Right. Okay. Where do you see eBay in market share? That's the first question. Are they on the decline? Are they just such a monster? There will always be there. What do you think about eBay? Maybe you get a couple of you answers, not everybody necessarily. And do you see room for a new reseller, or do you think the winner's going to be out there and it's already there? There's nothing new coming, because nobody saw Whatnot coming. Well, these two guys saw it pretty early, but nobody saw it coming, 5 years ago, right? You saw it a little bit sooner. If you know anything about these two, they were some of the first ones on there selling. So Where do you see eBay going? And I think I'm going to have you answer that question for the sake of time, and then allow you guys to chime in. So go ahead.
Well, it's hard. That's a hard question to answer. That's a great question, but it's a hard question to answer because eBay. We just don't know what behind eBay's thinking sometimes. So unless something comes out and they don't adapt, kind of like a Blockbuster video.
Yeah, I always use that example.
That Blockbuster was huge and died because they did not adapt.
Kmart
and
Sears.
A lot of these places like that. So I could see eBay doing something like that and ceasing to to keep up, or maybe they're going to be the leader in that new front. That's just that's what we have to see. But again, I think what's going to happen in the next maybe 3 years, you're going to see a few more places, markets come on, maybe these little niche markets here and there, like the kind of more boutique markets. And that's going to just take a little bit more of the space. So their pie slice is going to get, I think, a little bit smaller. But I think it's still going to be, big because they are still the front runner. Kind of like, Amazon, eBay. Those are the juggernauts, kind of like Coke and Pepsi, with everyone else. But you will see a little erosion from that.
And you've got so many topics here that I want to get into. I'll get into some of my videos where something we don't talk about is direct to consumer selling from the reseller. And a lot of times the reason we don't talk about it is because it does require social media to pull that off, and that's a whole different animal. But I don't want to get into that. But I think you've seen Whatnot is a bit of a combination of those things, and I think that's possible on YouTube, which you talked about earlier, on Insta, any social media platform, TikTok selling. I mean, all this stuff is out there.
You're seeing it move that direction.
And
sure.
It certainly affects the big players, right? Because if 14-year-old Katie is buying something on a, TikTok auction that some, music person is doing or something, that's less capital to go buy something off of one of those static platforms or something like that. So, all right, eBay as a player. Anybody else want to chime in? And if not, we're going to close it out. Anybody thinks eBay as a player? What do you got?
Real brief. eBay will stay the same. eBay will stay the same. To me, there won't be a lot of growth because I just don't see it technologically wise. Like, they are just not advancing at the same rate as some of these other places. But because they've already established themselves in the market, it's going to be very difficult for them just to die. So I think they just keep steady because I think eBay is content with staying steady. You know how
I'm just going to sum it up by saying this, because I totally agree with both sentiments about eBay. But the way I see it is television versus streaming, right? Streaming is massive, and look at all the strides, but guess what? That is a huge juggernaut to take down. It's going to take more than 10 years. Yeah. It's going to take a long, long time. Yeah. It's like the telephone company with the wired phone inside your house. That was a 20-year span to take them down. Yeah. So anyways, thank you guys. That was a great video. I appreciate you stopping by. Can't wait till next year at the 100 Mile Yard Sale.